Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all here this evening. We're just a couple of minutes away from getting started. Before we begin, I'd invite you to stand, join me in the pledge, and then Jim Reed will bring the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight and ask you to guide us and direct us on the decisions for this city and our citizens. Ask you, thank you for this rain that we need so much. Just thank you for our citizens. Ask you to be with our military wherever they're at in this world. These things we pray in Jesus' precious holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jim. All right, I'd like to again welcome you to this regular meeting of the Springdale City Council. This is Tuesday, June 26th, 2018. We do have large print copies of the agenda, if that would be beneficial to anyone. That said, I'm going to ask our city clerk, Denise Pierce, to call the roll. Never introduced you like that before.
Thank you. Mayor Sprouse.
Here.
Rick Culver.
Here.
Jeff Watson.
Here.
Mike Overton.
Here.
Colby Pulfer.
Omaha.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Rick Evans.
Here.
Jim Reed.
Here.
Kathy J. Cox. Here. Ernest Kate.
Here.
All right, thank you. Item 4, I'd like to ask Sam Goad, and Teresa, you come too, please. I asked you to come too because you're part of this too. Sam, we want to recognize you tonight for your 17 years as our Public Works Director. You have been, to me, a model department head. You have always conducted yourself with integrity, and you have just run a great department and been a tremendous benefit to the residents of Springdale in your tenure here as Public Works Director. So this is a small token that we would like to present to you, and that's a doorstop, paperweight, whatever you want to use it for, or for Teresa to keep you in line. Either way, yeah. So would you like to address the council and our residents here tonight?
Yeah, I'm not going to be very long. I know you got a heavy agenda. Well, I'd just like to say it's been my supreme privilege and honor to have had the good fortune to come to work for the city of Springdale. By far the best job I've ever had. I would stay longer, but it's time for me to retire, and Teresa's retiring as well. She's a retiring school teacher. So we're moving to our home in Missouri full time, and the mayor has my phone number and new email, so I'll be, if you some question or whatever, I'll be glad to answer it. So
Good deal.
But anyway, that's really all I got. And
Thank you, Sam. I don't understand the Missouri part, but
It's a pretty cool state.
oh, okay. All right, we're at item 5. This is the portion of each council meeting that the council sets aside to hear comments from our residents. We just ask that you, if you'd like to address the council, please come to the microphone, clearly state your name and address, and please keep your comments brief. And also understand that the council will not be taking action on anything you have to say tonight. So if there's anyone that would like to address the council concerning an item that is not on tonight's agenda, you're welcome to come at this time.
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Warren Cunningham. I live at 4298 Carriage Crossing Lane here in Springdale in the Carriage Crossing subdivision. And I came here to address the council again about the fireworks ordinance. It's been discussed with the ordinance committee and with this council a couple of times before, and it's too late, I understand, to do anything about it this year. We've wasted 12 months being able to fix it this year. So I wanted to come before you and urge you to make a couple of changes or consider making a couple of changes. First of all, the police department, your head of your police department and the fire department have recommended multiple times to this city council and to the ordinance committee that they ban fireworks in the city of Springdale. They told me that at the last ordinance committee meeting that I attended, which was last year. And I've talked to the fire department since that time. And so my first suggestion is please listen to the professionals that we've hired. I frankly think they know more about this than you do in terms of what it's like in the community. Given that that may not happen, I would ask that you amend the fireworks ordinance and place some kind of meaningful distance between fireworks, the point of ignition of fireworks, and property owned by others. And I don't mean just the house, I mean the property. In the past 4 years, we've had legal and illegal fireworks all over our house. The debris all over our yard. I've spent hours cleaning the stuff off. I've had a car damaged from falling on the roof and on the hood of my car. Don't seem to be able to get anybody's attention up here. I don't understand why. Of the 8 largest communities in this state, there are only 2 that have failed to ban fireworks within the city limits. That's Springdale and Fayetteville. And frankly, I don't think that's a distinction that any of us should be proud of. Under the current ordinance, someone can set off fireworks of any decibel as long as they're on their own property, which means 12.6 feet from every bedroom in my house. There is no littering. The police will not enforce littering because the fireworks take precedent. They will not enforce noise because fireworks takes precedent. So the rest of the year, those things have meaning to all of us, but for some reason, this is like a purge movie or something. You just go out and do whatever you want to do. We've set aside 4 days to just run amok. So what I would like to ask is that you listen to these professionals. They know what's going on out in the field, and frankly, I think you've hamstrung our police department. They get hundreds of calls. Even the Chief Peters told you in the council meeting 12 months ago, or in the ordinance committee meeting, that they don't have the resources to enforce or to address hundreds and hundreds. That's not just 100, not just 200, but hundreds and hundreds of citizen complaints every year, and they even stop recording, and they get hundreds more they don't even record. So I would urge you to please listen to the citizens who have an interest in this, besides just the ones who want to set off fireworks. I like fireworks. I like to go watch professional fireworks displays. There's at least 7 of them within 10 miles of Springdale. We've got a good one here. We've got numerous ones here. But I would think that you would care more about property protection than what I've seen so far. The ordinance, one last thing, the ordinance also says that you can't set it off in the parks. We have numerous wide open parks without the permission of the parks director. I can tell you that I've personally given a written request to the parks director to set off fireworks to see if we can offer that to residents in our neighborhoods as an alternative to blowing us out during the coming 4th of July. That request was turned down. And I want to tell you, a quote for you, the exact reason that I was given why we don't want it going off we don't want fireworks in our city property. For the safety and respect of other users of the park that may not want to be around fireworks. And I would assert to you that we care more about city property than so far you've shown you care about citizen property. And I urge you to make some changes. We've got another 12 months ahead of us to do something about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Warren. All right. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 6, the approval of minutes. If there are no changes or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve them as presented.
None so moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Item 7, procedural motions. What's your pleasure, council?
Move for A and B.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for A and B. Roll call, please.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Carry 7-0.
Item 8, we have a resolution, and I'm going to let Scott, you want to come on up?
I can read it if you want.
Yeah, okay. Scott's here in case you have any questions. Go ahead, Ernest.
This is a resolution endorsing participation in the sales and use tax refund program authorized by the Consolidated Incentive Act of 2003 and Arkansas Code annotated section 15-4-2706D for multi-craft contractors.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions for Scott or Ernest or any further discussion? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Carry 7-0.
Item 9 is an appeal of Planning Commission denial of a rezoning. And it says here, items to be presented by James Crouch, representing Ricky Allen Sharp. Is that right, Jim?
It's almost right. I represent the Ricky Allen Sharp Trust, which is the
Gotcha.
owner of the property.
All right, thank you.
Very close. So we are appealing the denial by the Planning Commission, which was, I think it was a 5-2 vote against. My client owns 17 acres on Ivy Lane, which, I brought my little pointer here, is that property there, that's the Hatch property. You can see the footprint of the rather large house, I would suggest mansion that he has built on that property. There on Ivy Lane, that's on the north side of Ivy Lane. Mr. Sharp and his family intend to live in the house that he's built there. The property is currently zoned SF2, and he seeks to rezone it to agricultural 1, agricultural. If you drive along Ivy Lane, and if you drive, which is right there, and George Anderson, you'll see that it's basically a rural setting. I mean, there are farms or farmettes or hobby farms or pastoral scenes that are throughout the neighborhood. And I would say that's largely true except for the Enclave subdivision. If I could have our technical person put up, thank you. This is, and what this is I took the zoning map for the city of Springdale, and I took the ownership map from the county assessor, and I overlaid it. It's not absolute, but it's pretty darn close. So if I can get my hand to be steady there, that's the subject property, the 17 acres that you saw before, also over here. The yellow, as I understand it, represents single family 2. The green, however, represents agricultural property. So there's a rather large home here to the west that's agricultural. There's a tract here west on Ivy Lane that's agricultural. And there are some livestock in this. I'm sorry, I'm not pointing to both of them. Okay. If I can stay over here, I could probably do a better job because I can hit that pretty well. There's livestock there, cows. The property across the street from the Sharp Trust property is agricultural, and it also adjoins the Enclave subdivision, which were the people that protested this. So there are, and there's, I think that's one tract there, and there's one tract there. Or, excuse me, perhaps it's right here.
And then George Anderson, you can see coming down that road, there's agricultural. Now, I assume that white area is Fayetteville, but I don't know it. That's why it's probably white. But it's basically an agricultural look. Whether it's zone agriculture, I don't know, but the agriculture runs through down here. So we feel that, the current ordinances in Springdale, of course, they allow some horses, but they don't allow livestock, cows. And Mr. Sharp just wants to run a few cows out there and a few horses. And our ordinances don't allow it unless it's agricultural. So we would be glad to answer any questions about the property, about the intended use from the council or from the audience. Oh, let me also pass some photographs around. There's some photographs that you'll see show Mr. Sharp's or the Sharp Trust property. Again, this property right here shows his house that's been built, shows the big fence that he's putting up with columns on it, and it shows some other areas of the neighborhood. And it's a beautiful neighborhood. I mean, those parts of the neighborhood that are agricultural here have huge estate homes, and there's some horses there on that tract. But we don't think this will detract from the neighborhood because it's the way it is right now in many respects. Again, I'll be glad to answer questions.
Can we put these photos into the record, or do you need them back?
Yes, please.
Which one?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand everything.
It's like small, medium, or large, yes.
Yes, put them in the record.
Thank you.
Jim, the property, and you may have said, I may have missed it when I was looking at the other map, the property to the north, the subdivision to the north of that's a different color. Is that also SF2?
I think it's SF1. It's SF3.
SF3?
SF3.
Okay. Thank you.
This is also Don Tyson Parkway along here, so that subdivision is across Don Tyson.
Okay.
And the property here is what the school district just recently purchased.
Do you know when that property was rezoned to SF2?
I do not.
Do you know, Jim,
Pardon?
do you know how long Mr. Sharp has owned the property? When he owned it, was it SF2?
I believe that's correct. How long have you owned it, Mr. Sharp?
February, a couple of years ago, is when I first purchased it.
16?
I guess my question is, Jim, when he purchased it, or the trust, let's assume it's the trust, was he not aware of the zoning restrictions, we'll call it? I mean, it's obvious from what I've been there, it's beautiful. It lends itself to what you're saying, but when he purchased it, I guess that's my question, was he not aware? Oh, there. Thank you.
I'll answer what I can.
Thank you.
My name is Ricky Sharp, and my property is 2060 Ivy Lane. When I purchased the property from my neighbor, he said that the property originally was going to have a subdivision on it across from Enclave, which amounts for the 40 acres or whatever it is in the whole area. But at no time did I not realize that I couldn't estate my home just like my neighbors. I didn't know that. So you're asking the question, did I know it was SF2? No, I did not. But
When it was sold to you, nobody said?
and I didn't think to ask anything
Well,
about
I
it
understand
because
that.
everybody else had.
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, I'm
So
just
I didn't know.
asking.
I'm not saying that's an excuse, but I'm saying I had no idea when I
Understand.
bought the property to build the estate home. Because I love Springdale and I want to live here, so.
I'm with you there.
And let me just expound on that, not what his knowledge is, but what maybe you think, well, a landowner should know. In years past, we used to do something called examining abstracts. That's what my daddy did every morning from about 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And when you, in the past, when you looked at abstracts, oftentimes they would have zoning ordinances in them. But I've been also reading title opinion. Now we use title policies or title commitments. And I can't remember the last one that I saw that says, oh, by the way, your property is zoned this or that. It might come up occasionally, but I think by and large, they don't show up.
Mr. Crouch, isn't it true that each piece of property has a seller's disclosure on it with the contract, and that specifies what the zoning is, I believe?
Well, it is true that they can have a seller's disclosure. There's no
believe-
requirement in the law that requires it.
I
but-
believe it's Arkansas Real Estate Commission policy that you have to have one with each contract.
I don't think you do, but I could
Well,
stand
I've
to be
just been
corrected.
following it for 40 years, I wouldn't know.
Well, I respect your background as a Realtor, but I think it's optional, but, because I've closed some without it. But I can't say whether he had one or not. Maybe you can answer that.
I really don't recall, I'll be honest. I just wanted to build a nice home there.
Since you brought it from a broker, I'll be willing to bet you did have a seller's disclosure. I don't know. I've just a point, because Mr. Croucher said that you always don't know what the zoning is, but that's just a typical document that goes with the contract. That's all I'm stating.
Well, and it oftentimes is, and look, sure, well, I mean, everyone's presumed to know the law, right? And I think you can say that there's constructive notice in some form or fashion that he should have known. That's not the same as actual knowledge of knowing, but we're just asking that it be rezoned, even though it's zoned SF2. And we just don't think it's an unreasonable request. I think that he has improved that property. He's improved Springdale. The irony of this, I think, is that a month ago, I was in front of you trying to get you to rezone some land out by Elm Springs from A1 to SF2, and the neighbors were very upset about it. I think the sense of the meeting was they either wanted mansions there or they wanted a pastoral scene. They wanted to be left alone. And so what Mr. Sharp or his trust has done is he's really insulated those neighbors in conclave from perhaps 60 or so houses with 70-foot wide yards by building his mansion there. And so, I mean, it is what it is, but I think that it's not going to hurt the neighborhood because the neighborhood already has agriculture in it.
I was here for the planning commission meeting. I understand where our planners were coming from, and I don't know that we've ever backed one up. Have we ever backed one up
Not that I remember.
from a
From that single family to,
family or commercial or
Agriculture.
anything back to A1?
One time on South Turner Street, the old Henson property, it was rezoned from residential to agriculture. They wanted to have horses and then decided not to. Then they came back in and it was rezoned again back to residential. That's the only time that I've,
When we created the conditional use allowing horses. in residential,
after that is when we created the allowing horses as a conditional use.
After that, you did what for the conditional use, Mike?
Allowing horses as a conditional use
What zone?
under SF2.
I thought they said it was not allowed.
No,
believe it is.
there's an acreage definition in there. Has to be a certain size.
I think the
Horses
horses would be, but
I don't
cattle
know how
would not.
many, but some horses would be allowed, but cattle wouldn't be.
Right.
And it's a conditional use, if the planning commission granted it. But he would like cows too.
Refresh my memory on agriculture. I know what he's wanting to do, and it all sounds good. What is allowed? Is that a Patsy question? Or Ernest? What all is agriculture?
I can give you
Not
what
that he's
is
gonna do
listed
that, but-
as a permitted use and what is listed as a conditional use in an A1 zone. Once it loads. Permitted uses in A1 zone are citywide public uses by right, agriculture, animal husbandry, single-family dwellings, home office. Conditional uses are city uses by conditional use permit, utility facilities, cultural, recreation, healthcare facilities, institutional facilities, zero lot line, medium density, single family, which is SF4, eating places, commercial large sites, home occupation, RV park, self-supporting tower or antenna structure or monopole, horses kept in residential areas, auction houses, temporary classrooms, temporary buildings and/or storage, and model home, temporary marketing office. Those are the conditional uses in an A1 zone.
Wait, in A1 or in SF2?
A1.
I think, what's a conditional use in an SF2?
Conditional use in SF2.
I would think that would be the question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were asking about agricultural.
think he
If it
was
got
asking.
He was
rezoned,
asking
yeah.
about agriculture.
I
Were you
can,
not?
want to know just what the conditional uses are in an SF2? City uses by conditional use permit, utility facilities, cultural, recreational, healthcare facilities, zero lot line, home occupation, horses kept in residential areas, temporary classrooms, and healthcare clinic. Zero lot line, that's use unit 9. I'd probably have to have Patsy explain that one.
Just horses.
Don't know that I've ever seen one of those, but
Well, I don't know why. I thought that the planning commission the other night, they said no horses.
No, they did say horses.
They did say they could
It was
do
the
horses.
cows that.
I think the
they-
question was that Mr. Sharp wanted to have cattle.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Ernest, review again, because in my subdivision, I'm getting ready to be introduced to a goat farm because it's A1 property. So is that a possibility here with chickens and other things allowed in an
Absolutely.
A1? So I think that's something that everybody needs to consider. Certainly, it's not on your menu. A goat farm wasn't on mine either.
Well, let me just comment on that. I think it was said publicly that the neighbors are worried about not what Mr. Sharp would do, but what the next owner would do. But, I know that lightning does occasionally strike twice, and I know that people win the lottery. But I just think that it is an unfounded fear that Mr. Sharp or anyone else who owns that property would put something on there that's an intense agricultural use. It's just not, it's not a very warranted or rational fear because there is such an investment in that property. And again, I think he's improved the neighborhood, he's improved Springdale. I think you should consider the agricultural use.
We ready, council, you ready to hear from folks out there?
Do we have to hear from that attorney?
I wasn't, whoever gets up and comes to the mic.
Do I get a vote?
Yeah, Jim, let's hear from some other folks.
hang on, let me look.
I had a question, just a minute, Stephen. Okay, sure. Are we allowed fireworks in agricultural?
Hold on.
I don't think so.
No fireworks shall be sold or stored except in a C2, C5, C6, or A1 zone, provided the A1 property has frontage on a federal or state highway, which this is not.
Okay.
So there you go. So yes, but no.
I'm Steve Lyle. I'm here at the request of Greg Hager and the other residents of the Enclave subdivision. He's the president of their homeowners association. We have quite a few residents here. Hopefully, I'll be able to speak for everyone so we don't have to hear. But I did want you to know that they are here and they are concerned and did come out. We believe that the Planning Commission decided this properly after a lot of thoughtful consideration, the same issues you're talking about, because this isn't just a request for a few head of livestock. It's a request for what would be the ability to put an unlimited number of any type of livestock on the property. That's the concern. People with their best laid plans, it doesn't always, as you know, doesn't always play out. The property is large enough to be split at some point. We've all seen situations where things didn't work out the way everybody had hoped. There's no ill will towards to Mr. Sharp and his plans. He does have a pretty piece of property there. But if you look at, if you think about what A1 is, if you even read in the code, what A1 says is it's designed to protect existing agricultural land until orderly transition to urban development has been accomplished. That's from your code, and it's to encourage single-family residential on large tracts. So far, everything is going according to plan in this area. You have the property that's green here wasn't zoned A1, it was never been zoned. And so what has happened is it's been preserved as A1 until, as you now see, the yellow starting to come in with the real estate, the residential development. All those properties to the south of Ivy, although they're green on your map, those are residential properties. Those aren't anything now that would require an A1 farming zoning. They're being used, like the code says, as large acreage residential tracts. And so now you're going to have a school to the east of this property, which is only going to encourage development. There's a lot of development going out there. I was out there today. There's some residential development going on in the Enclave subdivision. The folks in Enclave wouldn't be concerned about a few, horses, that sort of thing, but that's not the request tonight. The request is to open it up to anything. And these zoning changes are permanent unless the landowner comes back and asks for it to be switched in the future, which means this could go on 5-10 years, who knows how long, until there could be a problem right next to the school, right next to the new development. And that's the concern. And we just don't think it's needed. If the purpose is just to have a few head of cattle on a large residential lot, then they can do that right now. Not cattle, they can do the horses. They could get a conditional use from the city, which would allow a reasonable amount of horses on the acreage that could be then monitored so that it didn't expand beyond what anybody would have wanted. And if you do that, if they go that route, then it would keep the nature of the everyone would know that we don't have to worry about some unforeseen thing happening on the property. We would have the residents in the area would feel comfortable knowing that it's going to be preserved and not turn into some a goat farm, chicken farm, any of the swine operation, any of the things that can happen. And if those of you have been sitting here long enough, know that they do happen. They do happen. And in my business, we deal with the things that you don't think are going to happen, but do happen all the time. So that's the concern. We just ask that based on this request, this particular request, to turn it into an unlimited, as far as the type of animals, the number of animals, this is too broad, and we ask that you support the Planning Commission and deny this rezoning request.
Sure.
I'm just a country feller. That's how I grew up. Worked hard all my life. I got a question for you. What's to keep all these people that have the green zones from doing exactly what you don't want them to do, or the people next to them? Can you answer that?
They can do that.
Okay, that's what I thought. Will they do it? Probably not. I'm not planning on it either. So I don't think my request is out of line. I really don't. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion or question? Yes, sir.
My name is Kevin LaMarche. I live at 1912 Tuscany Ave, which is in the Enclave. My specific piece of property actually backs up to Ivy Lane. And the question that I have is, my understanding at looking through and researching is that the Planning Commission has a master plan in terms of how these properties are to be effectively changed into residential areas in keeping with that section of the town. You have the school committee or whatever governing body it is there that has bought that piece of property to the east of the property we're talking about right now to put a school in there. And I think that, they've spent a great deal of money to look at how they zone these areas and where they move into the future. And, for me, my question is, why would we go against everything that they've now planned out? Why are we now going to change and almost pretty much spot zone within an area that's been determined to be moving into residential. You know, right to the, on the other side of Don Tyson, you have 2 brand-new subdivisions that are going in as we speak. And there's a third one planned for the empty piece of property next to it. So here again, you know, everything is moving in that direction. So, you know, my point is, why aren't we going with what the Planning Commission has put forth? Why aren't we sticking to the master plan? Why are we even entertaining to change these types of things? Thank you.
Well, to overturn the, Ernest, correct me if I'm wrong, but to overturn the decision of the Planning Commission, we would need a motion to do such.
Correct.
And I'll,
Without a motion, the planning
Without a-
commission's decision would.
without a motion, the decision will be upheld. Does the council intend to take any action? All right. Then the appeal is denied for lack of a motion. Okay, we're ready for the Planning Commission reports and recommendations by Patsy Christie, Director of Planning.
The first item on the agenda is a request to rezone 16.8 acres owned by Neely Homes located at 3903 South Jean George Boulevard from Agricultural District A1 to High Density Multifamily Residential District MF24 and General Commercial District C2 and declaring an emergency. Planning Commission recommends approval of this rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads an ordinance, amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from Agricultural District A1 to High Density Multifamily Residential District MF24 and General Commercial District C2 and declaring an emergency. And the emergency exists because we have a proposed development for this piece of property.
Move this ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Does anyone in the audience need to speak to this one? This is off of Jean George South, or 56th, south of Don Tyson Parkway, on the west side. Excuse me?
No, this is not that property. This is Neely, owned by Neely Homes located at 3903 South Jean George Boulevard.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Denise.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Urge clause be adopted. Second.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans, Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 7-0.
The next item is a request to rezone 3.87 acres owned by Greg and Anna Young and Linda Young located on the south side of Don Tyson Parkway east of Savannah Lane. The request is to rezone the property from Agricultural District A1 to Low Density Multifamily Residential District MF2. The original request that was submitted by the applicant was to rezone the property to MF4. When they came to the Planning Commission, they requested that it be downgraded to an MF2, and it has always been the Planning Commission's policy that a downgrade could be heard without having to re-advertise.
And it's in the ordinance.
And it's in the ordinance as well. Yes, I'm sorry. So the Planning Commission reviewed this request to rezone the property from A1 to MF2, recommends approval of that rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from agricultural district A1 to low-density multifamily residential district MF2 and declaring an emergency.
All right. Discussion?
We don't have any action yet.
We don't know. We
No.
don't.
In order to move this forward, just for discussion purposes, I'm going to make a motion to move this ordinance forward to pass.
Okay.
Just for discussion purposes, gentlemen.
What happens if we don't move it forward? It goes ahead and
Got a
goes.
second, it dies.
Say again, Mike?
Got a second, it dies.
Will it stay with what the planning commission?
Nope, the ordinance is
No.
not
No.
adopted.
Okay.
If the ordinance is not adopted, it's not rezoned.
Nope, right, because the planning commission is just a recommendation.
Advisory body, they're not
Right.
elected body.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Okay. So it's the intention of the council not to second. If that's the case, I never know in these situations how long to give somebody before I shut the door. But it looks, I mean, obviously, you all have had plenty of time to think about this, and if you were going to make a second, I think we'd have had one by now.
Thank you,
So,
Ryan.
so we'll, this approval dies for lack of a motion and a second.
Property's not rezoned.
Property's not rezoned. All right. Item 11. Street and Capital Improvement Committee reports and recommendations. The chairman is Rick Evans. Rick?
Okay, we had a meeting last week, Street CIP. We got one resolution on the agenda tonight. It's a resolution authorizing execution of an engineering service contract for street drainage improvements for the extension of Ford Avenue. Engineering services, not to exceed $250,000 for the.
Okay.
Move the resolution pass.
We have a motion to approve the resolution
Second.
and a second. Thank you. Any further comments or questions? All right. This is a bond issue project, street project that we're glad to be in a position to get started with design. Does anyone in the audience need to speak to this before we vote? Okay, Denise?
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Carry 7-0.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Parks and Recreation Committee reports and recommendation, Chairman Mike Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. We have one item that was recommended for approval. We met last week. It's an ordinance to waive competitive bidding for purchase of a robot package. It is, typically, I'm not a fan of waiving competitive bidding, but it's my understanding there's only one company that actually does this. It's a GPS system to line and stripe about any field that we choose and program it to do. It will save us some money on manpower, and we moved it forward with recommendation for approval.
All right.
Move the ordinance pass.
Got a motion and a second for approval. Any other questions or discussion? Anyone in the audience? Bill, when you get that thing, can you give us all a demonstration? Okay. I'm kind of anxious to see that. All right, Denise?
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 7-0.
All right, Police and Fire Committee reports and recommendations. Chairman's Rick Culver. Rick?
Yes, Mayor, we had one item come before us, and it was recommended for approval. It is ordinance to waive competitive bidding on purchase of body armor for the fire department.
Move the ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other comments or questions? Chief Irwin's here to answer questions. If I know we had a lot of discussion about it in committee. Anyone in the audience? Okay, Denise?
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes, move the emergency clause pass.
Second.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Ordinance emergency clause carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 14, Health, Sanitation, Property Maintenance Committee reports and recommendations. Chairman is Jim Reed. Jim?
Have an ordinance ordering the raising, demolition, and removal of certain residential structure within the city of Springdale, Arkansas, located at 215 West Maple Avenue, and to declare an emergency for other purposes. This item's been tabled several times. The last time it looks like was April 24th. Tom, where are we at?
Okay, I mean, there's been quite a bit of progress on this, council. They did get a demo permit for the 3 structures that I had split off in the back. They've taken 2 of them down, and they wish to salvage one of those structures. I took these pictures today of the main house. They've actually applied for their permit. Now we're doing the form-based code, so Tommy Jameson is going to meet with Patsy, I believe, Thursday to submit his plans or what they're desired to make this look like. And that's just a matter of getting that through, you know, our departments, and then it's ready to go for that. I have let them start the demolishing of that house, because that's what they wanted to do to get there, so.
The plan,
Actually, parts of the house is what they're demolishing. It's
Yes,
not
they've
true.
taken off several sections, and when I took this, and I didn't know, he's here and he could help you better maybe, but some of this, like on that, this is one of the structures in the back that they want to leave out of the 3 that they had back there. And the other 2 are in worse shape. A tree had fallen on one, so they had pretty much taken care of this. What's the next one, Mike?
there was a rock.
This one shows that's where the one had fallen on. They still got a little bit of cleanup to do, but the structure is essentially gone. Next one, Mike. And that one shows that the 3rd structure that was there is completely gone. Then when you get back up towards the house, this here is actually this is the front porch where they're bracing it up, because we all have seen where the boards were to hold it up. So they have taken a lot of rusted, or not rusted, but rotted or damaged materials off, and they have braced it up, I saw today. This is on the east side of the front porch, and they have increased it. You can kind of see the pillar in the front that's got some of the angled members holding it up, and they're supporting it. And again, everything is behind a chain link fence that you've seen they've put up, and they've actually got it split up into 2 sections so no one can easily traverse the property. This here, it was a whole section that jutted out this way to the west. That would be the west coming towards that refrigerator, completely removed. Next one, Mike, please. That one there that was actually where the kitchen was what's still there. Where that concrete was an addition that was put on at some point that they wanted to take off because it didn't conform to what they had originally. And then I think there's another one, Mike. This one is around from the other side of that kitchen. This is where they had a long addition, had lots of, you know, soffits and everything you could see right through the roof. So that's all gone now. So they are actively working on it.
Are they keeping it secure?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And they have, the garage is the, when I broke it down, I had broken it down into 3 pieces.
So what do you want us to do?
You know, I think that, you know, as soon as it gets through Patsy's office this week, and they've already turned in the deal, I mean, once I issue them a permit, they've got 6 months, and as long as they actively call for an inspection, it's 6 months from every time they call. I think that we need to table this for quite a while. There's no sense coming back every month or every 60 days, because I think that it's going to be
For
permitted.
6 months or what?
I think 6 months is fair, and then I could give a report at that
Or do
time.
we even need it, even be on our agenda anymore?
No.
It is a good chance it wouldn't need to be on
Couldn't
our.
you just bring it back if we needed to?
Yes, I think it would be just as easy.
That's the easiest way, just to
Because
take it off.
this is probably gonna be a project that I think is gonna be year-long, you know, multiple years that fixes. So, I mean, as long as they keep their permit active, keep the site clean, I mean, it could go for a couple of years.
Ernest, make sure the council hears what you just said.
Yeah, if you pull it and don't take any action, if we just waited to bring it back, if we needed to, all that would require would just be new notice to property owner before we started over, which wouldn't be a problem.
So
Yeah.
if we don't take action on this ordinance, the ordinance can come back at any time?
We'd have to we'd have to start over with new notice.
But just take a notice, that's all.
Yeah.
So again, without a,
Like on zoning, there's no requirement that you can't bring back another ordinance within so long or anything like that, right?
There is for rezoning, but
But
not for this.
something
right.
like this.
I
And
talked to
without
the
it-
architect today, and I think they're really working seriously on the plans. He asked him to stop demolition until he come in, looked at what's going on. He won't have plans with him this Thursday. They still have to decide what they want to do with it, but they are actively looking for, they found a lot of things they didn't expect to find too, and so they're working really, really hard to get this thing moved forward, so.
Without a motion in a second, it stays.
Yeah, I think they were surprised to see some of it,
Ain't no
yeah,
action.
yeah.
Yeah, the brick looked good.
We're just not gonna do anything tonight.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that if that was the case.
Y'all
I
are
mean,
shy tonight. Okay.
Yeah, I would certainly, if that was the problem, if they didn't continue on, I'll bring it back. It's not a problem, you know, so.
Do we need a vote?
Nope.
Okay,
Fails for no motion.
good
the
there.
record.
Boy,
Easy enough.
we've
Yeah,
heard
thank you.
that tonight.
Thank you, Councilman.
Go watch the baseball game.
Yeah, I guess so. All right. Any comments from department heads? Council?
I actually have one.
Oh,
Okay.
Surprise, surprise. You know, I just wanted to ask a question, actually, and I never had really noticed this until it happened in my neighborhood. But, you know, we require signs be placed on property for rezoning. And then, once the planning commission approves the rezoning, does our ordinance say the sign comes down? Because on the one we had tonight, the planning commission did recommend rezoning, and then everyone thought it was a done deal, and I think there would have been a lot more people here had they known it was still
Yeah,
an issue.
I don't think it addresses when it has to come down. We have had so many zonings, conditional uses, and variances that we have struggled to get enough signs, and we've ordered signs 3
Well, I
times
think
because
it's
there's so
unfair
many.
to the neighborhood for that sign to come down when it was still, had to be approved by the council, and a lot of people didn't realize.
Yeah,
that it
I don't
had-
know that the ordinance says how long it has to stay, but if you want it, the policy that it stays till after the till after the city council meets, we can do that.
Yeah. The point behind publishing the sign is because that's when the public hearing
Right,
takes
and that's really
place.
all
It's
it
at the-
is.
It's at the
Yeah.
planning commission, so it
Right.
only requires the sign to be up,
Yeah,
but providing notice of the
If-
public hearing.
right.
If a rezoning is denied and it is appealed, then would you
They would still leave.
No.
still
right?
leave it up?
There's not another public hearing notice because it comes, they have to notify the adjacent property owners the same way of the appeal, but otherwise, there's nothing that requires that sign to be put back
We don't
up.
have to decide tonight, maybe we could discuss.
We could talk about
this.
that, yeah.
Discuss it.
Yeah.
But I do believe Jeff has a really good point. Until the action is finalized, should be by the council.
Let's just talk about it at ordinance meeting.
But I do think your point is well taken.
But you'd have to change. the
We'd have to
notice on
change the sign.
After planning commission
Okay, well,
before
Right,
council.
right. We need to talk about that because it truly says this is the day of the public hearing and the time and it has all that information on it. That's all the purpose of the sign is to start with, yeah.
Okay, good
Mayor,
point.
I've got a couple of things.
Go ahead,
The
Jim.
first thing is, I got a call this evening from Joe Dunn. We all know Joe. Over on Ireland, where he lives at, he almost got hit tonight. We've got to try to put some stop signs or something on that street
Where?
to slow
Where,
down.
Jim?
Ireland, that's in Harbor.
Oh,
Harbor
Ireland cuts
Meadows.
through from,
They
yeah,
use
it
it-
goes all the way to
They use
Harbor.
it for a shortcut all the time, and that's fine, but this guy, he's, of course, I don't know, I mean, he didn't have radar on him, but he said he was going 60 mile an hour, you know?
So you're talking about
Why would they
between
put
Harbor
those-
and that street to the south?
Between Harbor and that street to the south, we need to put something in there to make them slow down. Either we've got to use stop signs, or we've got to use speed tables or something, we've got to.
I noticed that on one street that turns off of 56, they had put one of those speed, you know,
Yeah.
shouldn't that go before the traffic committee?
That's kind of what we
Well, it
do
hasn't,
first.
this one has gone before them in the past and been turned down.
Well, I think it ought to go back before the
I saw
traffic,
Brad making a note, so.
before the
yeah.
traffic committee, before we take any action, see what they.
But anyway, I wanted that talked about,
And what they'll do a lot of times, Jim, is put one of our trailers out there
that's what
to
I
slow people down
noticed.
first, and they'll try that first. Now, I don't know if that's been tried there or not.
It has been, and
Okay.
he said they didn't pay any attention to it.
Okay,
You know, now if they were taking pictures and sending tickets in the mail, they might pay attention to that.
okay,
But
go ahead, Jim.
anyway, and he also, and I don't know if it's Ernest will know whether it's legal or not. He said the police are more than welcome to back up in his driveway and shoot radar, you know? Now, the next thing,
Folks, I've been on this council 12 years, and I'm announcing tonight that I'm not running for reelection. I have enjoyed working on this council, working with this council, working with Mayor Sprouse and with Jerry Van Hoos. It's been really good. Just personal reasons, it's time to retire. This is my 4th retirement. I'm not getting any money off of this one. But there are some fine folks running in this position. I think I'll be leaving it in good hands.
Good deal. Thank you, Jim. Thanks for your years of service. You've done a lot for the city of Springdale. So, and I know we'll get other opportunities to thank you more appropriately.
Mayor, I've got 2 things.
Go ahead, Jim, or Rick. Sorry.
There's, just to let everyone know, there's 2 parades this week for the Rodeo of the Ozarks starts tomorrow night. There's a parade tomorrow afternoon at 3 and one Saturday afternoon at 3. So we'd like everyone to come out downtown Springdale and enjoy
This is the
parade.
first year you've had them both at 3, right? Or at least in a while?
In a while, yeah.
Okay, so that makes it easier for me.
Yeah,
I
it
know.
does.
Rick,
Yeah,
can I ask one question?
Yes.
I heard yesterday, is it true that it's going to be live streamed? That it's going to be?
Going to be on Channel 5 on their on their sister station.
Okay.
Is going to show it live.
Just for those who might be
No,
listening?
Saturday.
Just Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday.
And
Okay.
I'm not doing my cowboy fast
I
drive this
know.
year.
Let me any more from the council?
That's all.
Okay, I got a couple things, and that prompted one of them. Also, I know Alan Lord would want me to announce that Saturday at 2 is the dedication of the Shiloh Meeting Hall. So people can come to that dedication, have plenty of time to enjoy that, and then just walk right on over to Emma and
For the
watch the
parade.
parade. So,
Yeah.
so it'll be a good day Saturday afternoon. I also wanted to publicly say, and I know I try not to speak for you all much, but I know I can speak for you on this, that we certainly, the city of Springdale certainly sends our condolences to the Zimmerman family, the Don Zimmerman family. Don has been for many, many years, since 1974 and even before that. But in '74, he became the executive director of the Arkansas Municipal League. His father was the executive director before that. His father actually started the league in 1934. And Don passed away Sunday afternoon after some short illness, and he's going to be missed greatly by the cities in Arkansas and the residents of Arkansas. He has led that league, and you all know the services and the services provided by our Arkansas Municipal League and what they mean to not only our city but to all 500 plus cities in Arkansas who are all members, and just his funeral is Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock at Emmanuel Baptist Church in Little Rock, and I know that y'all want to join me in expressing our condolences to Jan and to their children and their extended family as well. And Mark Hayes, who we're all very familiar with, the head of legal at the league. I think he's been with the league something like 28 years. And the executive committee last Friday appointed Mark as interim director as we make decisions over the coming months about permanently filling that position. And I know Mark will do a great job, and he's no stranger to us. So I just wanted to say that. The other thing I need to say is that as we recognize Sam for his 17 years tonight, Brad Baldwin will become our new Public Works Director. Brad will have also oversight of engineering, and we'll see how that all shakes out, Brad, over time. This will be a transition that I know the council will be very patient and supportive as you get in there and make the changes that you believe you need to make. And we look forward to working with you. I know you'll do a great job, as you have already with engineering. And so we're here to support you, and let us know what you need.
Mayor, before we adjourn, if you're finished. For those who may not know, Springdale was named an All-American City in Denver.
Thank you.
This past weekend, which is a really amazing honor and distinction that I think that we should all be very proud of.
That is a big deal. It's the second year in a row.
Yes,
And only
it's a
10
big deal.
cities are awarded that nationwide. And so that's a big accomplishment, and one for which Springdale can be very proud. All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.